Yeah, one lady said, a lady from a church that I used to be a member of visited here, has been visiting a few Sundays now, not in succession, but periodically. I think I introduced her to you one day. And I've noticed that, excuse me, we're having more visitors from that. When I was a member of this very large church I was talking to about New York, people always just walk past because, like you said, it always looked closed. It was never closed. It was a 7-day-a-week kind of thing. But we always walked by because we thought there was nothing going on in there. Yet when you got in and got involved in the intrinsics, there was too much going on there. You didn't have enough hours in the day to take care of what was going on. So it's kind of like here. It looks dark maybe and like we're not here doing anything. You're here at least a few nights a month, at least 3 or 4 nights a month to a meeting of some sort or something. You know, it's an active church. It's not just a Sunday morning church. Yeah. It's a very active ministry of many kinds, many different types.
Well, that may answer this one question that I've had, and maybe so. I wonder why there are so many ministers in our church as members.
They know good thing when they see one. They need ministering to.
Yes.
Certainly, and it's not judgmental from up there. The stuff I hear up there is never, you better do so-and-so, or you going to do so-and-so. I mean, you know.
It's a very rare church that's a home.
I think so.
Ministers.
Yes. 8 of them. I think,
8,
right?
is that right?
I think. You named someone one night, I said I didn't know him. You said he was very low-key.
Yeah, that's it. There are probably a couple out there that don't have guys, or that I just haven't heard about. I can name 5 or 6 of them.
Yes,
I was aware of them, and I think it's just wonderful.
Right, yes.
Along that same line, along the line of the subject of ministers, just in this process now where we're going through a change, a transition, it's been brought up that some churches change priests every 2 years. Some churches change ministers every 2 years. And being kind of a new person to churches in general, I was just shocked by that because I know of your long association with the church. I know I took notes on several different names that I heard in 15 years, 18 years is not uncommon for a pastor. It's circular. And I don't know what question that leads to other than, how does that happen? Why is there such a good feeling about being here? I can't formulate the question. Why does it happen that we're so blessed with ministers who are willing to stay with the congregation for so long?
Well, you were asking about the the ministers staying a long time in the church. That's right.
I was trying to formulate a question.
Yeah, right.
I forget to formulate.
It's probably normal, at least in my denomination, the Presbyterian Church, for ministers who are starting out to stay in a church for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then gradually, as you go to different churches, you are expected to stay a little bit longer. In the middle of your ministry, your pastorate, maybe 5 to 7 years, and then maybe 10 or 12 years, and so forth. But it really is unusual, I think, for somebody to stick around as long as I have. And this has been something that I've thought a lot about, because there are good reasons, both for the minister and the church, not to stick around too long. And the reasons should be obvious. People get in a rut, they get too comfortable, you lose your edge. The congregation stops growing because they're getting the same thing over and over again, and it's just, there comes a time when it's probably beneficial both to the life of the minister and to the life of the congregation to have a change. And then I've had to ask myself, why have you not changed? And I guess, in part, it is just that feeling of comfortableness. And maybe it's a rut, but it hasn't felt that way for me. One of the things that's been different is that we have had a succession of co-ministers or associate ministers or parish associates who have brought in the new, different elements, different emphases and styles. Susan Hull, whom we've just said goodbye to in the last month, brought something just unique to the congregation. She's a poet and an artist, and has such a unique gift for expression, presentation, for the communication of spiritual reality in ways that are fresh and green and so forth. And I think that her gift was different from Susan Bowder, who was before her, who brought something different to the congregation, and they were different from Mark Deaton and Pete Jorgensen and Bob Boston and so forth. So we've had a lot of change and newness in the pastoral leadership, even though one of us is kind of stuck around. And the other thing that's been going for me is that working both here and at the medical university and teaching, I found that each of those job involvements helps keep the other one fresh. I don't feel that I get tired of coming to the same church office every day to work and doing the same things and so forth, because I don't do that. And likewise, I don't get burned out at the medical university because of the continual freshness of what's happening for me with this congregation. So it's been, I suppose, unusual to stay for as long as I have, which is probably going on now over 20 years. But it hasn't seemed that long to me. It seems like every year is different.
Well, I find that stability comforting.
Mm-hmm.
And with, as you say, with so many changes all around, I mean, just the general pace of the world, and yet the pace of the people who attend Circular, and the liveliness and the ideas, and a vibrant group of people. I see no rut. As far as I can observe, there's no edge that you've lost. And as for lack of growth, packing them in.
That's right.
And I think that's so wonderful testimony to a church.
I agree. I think that stabling force, which Bert is required, because with the newness coming in, who's going to help set this stuff straight? If we don't have someone who's been here long enough, who knows, at least he knows what he wants. He knows what he likes. And that's easier for us, you see. Real easy to work with.
Yeah, speaking with the folks today, there's a lot of continuity over the years. There's been a very close core of people who've stayed for a long time.
Yes.
And yet, as you observed before, there's so many children, so many new members.
Yes.
I just thought of a question that I'd like to ask Bert and Mary. We haven't really asked anybody this, although you've addressed it in a variety of ways, but maybe if you could just make a statement to the effect of, if you were talking to a stranger and had to describe Circular, how would you describe this church?
If I were talking to a stranger, how would I describe the church, the people, or the physical, the church?
Thing that is circular.
The whole thing that is circular. Well, I would begin inside. I would also begin, if you would allow me to, with something that I made friends with a lady who came to visit Circular a few times, and before she went back home, she said to me, I feel the need to move back to Charleston. I hope I'm doing the right thing, but I want to come to Circular. And she said, do you know why I like it here? I said, no. She said, well, there are two reasons. She said, the people, one reason. She said, and the other reason is it's not too preachery here. So I say it's not a judgmental kind of thing, simply because I'm accustomed to a lot of that other stuff, all right? And the stuff that you hear, and it's not just from here, it's from here too, if you're listening. It's from the people next to you who are commenting on what's being said or what's being heard. That, and the big thing that I stuck with earlier, it feels right. It's very difficult to be in a place where you cannot be yourself. I don't even attempt that. Everybody who knows me knows I like to talk, I'm opinionated, I like to give my opinions on things and all this bit. But it has to feel right. It fits like a glove, you know? It really does. I don't wake up on Sunday morning and say, God, I gotta go to church again today. I'm going, oh, I read that thing that Bert had in the newsletter. Let me go see how he's gonna handle this. You know? and that keeps me wanting to be a part of Circular. That is, and yet people would say, well, oh, I don't want to go to that church because everybody's in there so heavy upstairs, as the saying goes. You know, there are doctors and lawyers and a lot of professionals here, and a lot of cerebral people. And that scares a lot of people off, but they don't realize that these people are just plain old people. We're just simple people. And people have to live. You've got to have a profession of some kind. You've got to make money to raise your families and stuff, you know, so you've got to do something. But that, like I said, that's because the feeling, it felt good. It's good ministry. It's always something different. You can never ever expect the same thing happening in Circular on Sundays, because you just never know. And that's what I like about it. It's not the same old stuff over and over and over again. And I look forward to being with my church family on that one day that I have to share with them for a few minutes. That's one of the things that I enjoy. And it's a historic church. It's prestigious. Is what people think. You know, they think everybody in this church has a lot of money.
Do they really?
They do. They really do. They think, oh, people. I've heard them say that. The people down there are rich. Down there, you know, are rich. People down here may have a couple of bucks, but they have children, they have homes. You know, we have 2 and 3 automobiles. People are just people. So I don't know how I would come across, I guess, if I were to try to encourage someone to come, but I simply say, come and see for yourself. And most people who come to see like what they see and hear.
I think that's true.
Bert probably has a lot more on that, but
That's good.
a little bit.
When I describe the church to people, I guess it depends a lot on the person, of course, you know, because people are wanting to hear different facets of what goes on or what the congregation, what the church is like. But I suppose what I hear myself saying most often is that it's a church we're a church that really does try to do 2 things at the same time. One is, and Father Francis Klein, who preached last Sunday, was getting at this in his sermon when he called it discipline versus inspiration, or tradition versus innovation or creativity. You know, I think what we're trying to do is to keep the integrity of being a Christian church, you know, the body of Christ, and to hear the word and to celebrate the sacraments and to do things that other churches do, and yet at the same time to reinvent the church. And ask ourselves as openly and as freely from agenda as we can what it could possibly mean to be the church in 1994 or in the 21st century. And this is going to mean something different from what it's meant in the past, because we all know the church has been caught in a very authoritarian, patriarchal, male-dominated set of traditions that has imprisoned the church and has kept us from being responsive to the needs of people and to the imaginations of people and the aspirations of people. So I think what we're trying to do is to keep what's real in the tradition and to let go what is false and to discover in the experience, the spiritual experience of a variety of folks who come here, what the church could be today and tomorrow, and to do that with innovation and freedom. And that probably gets us in trouble sometimes, and some of the things that we do may look kind of stupid and turn other people off. But I think that it's so important to do this that it's certainly worth the risk of making some mistakes. I think that Susan, again, was very, very helpful in moving the church forward in this regard, because Susan had insight, I think, into the spirituality of women that I certainly never had even touched on before in my own experience, for obvious reasons. And she was able to articulate that and to live it out, to bring it into presence with the church in such a powerful way that it moved us in ways we hadn't been moved before. In her understanding of wisdom, for example, and the feminine face of God. So I think that these are ways that we struggle with what we've inherited. We struggle to reinvent that for the future, for the present and the future. So I guess what I think about the church is that we're in that kind of relation, tense relationship between the past and the future, and it seems to me to be a good place to be. I would like for us to be leaning into the future and to be really hopeful about it, rather than busy about the task of defending the past.
I tried a question earlier, and I'm not sure if it worked, about, do you have a wish for circular? Mentioned the future. What I was trying to get at was, where should circular be in 10 years or 25 years? Mm-hmm. What should circular be?
What's the circular be in 10 years or 25 years?
Yeah, because we've been looking at how much it has changed, what it is today, as opposed to 25 or even 50 years ago.
Right.
And I've been getting some images of plaster falling and sticky pews and coffee shops and wonderful, just a wonderful. Lots of things have happened here, and the church has changed a great deal.
You have asked a very wise question about where we might be in 10 years or 25 years, and planning for the future, I suppose, implicitly in that. One of the things that I've been aware of just recently and been very interested in is chaos theory. Now, the idea that one of the changes that our whole culture is in the throes of is a change from the old Enlightenment modernity in which Newtonian physics held the day. A cause produces an effect. You can plan for the future because the future is predictable. If we do this, then that's going to happen. And we used to think that the universe was that way. Well, it's not. Most of the really important things that happen in the universe are totally unpredictable because they are not linear they are nonlinear. They're multifactorial. There are so many factors that are always coming in, most of them unknown before they happen, that we're constantly taken by surprise, and the future is really not predictable. And even when we plan for it, it's probably not going to happen according to the way that we planned. So the best we can do is probably plan for multiple futures. And I think that's the way I would see the future of this church. One of the things that I see that could be happening would be for the church to continue this pilgrimage into a new future, and continue to be open to other influences, such as the presence in our midst of people of the Buddhist tradition. I think of Gelsen Sherpa, for example, and his and Kathy Donovan's bringing the Tibetan lamas into the church 2 weeks ago. I would like for us to be more attentive to the Buddhists, to the influences of the East, and not in a kind of sophomoric, facile way of saying, well, everybody's saying the same thing anyhow, and let's take a little of this and a little of that, a little Buddhism, a little Christianity, and put it together. No, I don't think that works. I think that what we are called to do is to be firmly grounded in Christian faith, because it's authentic, it's real, to the point that we're able to also let ourselves pass over into the spiritual reality of Buddhism, and let it enrich us, and perhaps we can enrich them, their tradition, their faith, and in that way become better Christians. So I would see that this kind of ecumenical openness is a way that our church can continue to move and can become kind of like a cathedral, in the sense that it's a place where people from the whole parish of the world can gather on feast days and sit down together and have fellowship and learn from each other. And what that would mean in practical terms, I'm not sure. My hunch is that the church is not going to grow into a mega church. We are about 300 members now, and we may get a little bit bigger than that, but I wouldn't expect the church to grow much more than 350, and probably hover between 300 and 350 members. For one thing, that's about all the building can accommodate anyhow. But for another, I don't think there are too many folks that are going to be interested in the kind of exploration that Circular is about. It's a fairly conservative area. So I would say that being one thing. I think that what Mary was talking about before is another. I'd like to see the church continue to try to be very sensitive to needs in the community, to unpopular causes, if you will, but things that need to be done. And maybe act a few years before they have really caught the public's fancy, to foster, to take risks in fostering community change. And that will continue to put us in Dutch, I suppose, with public opinion, as we have been in the past from time to time. But I think that's all right. The church needs to be on the edge. And if the church is not on the edge of its culture, then the church needs to ask whether it's in captivity to the culture. So I believe that that's what we need to, that's in the future. That's in the cards for the church as well. Experimentation, exploration, keeping that green edge is where we need to be.
Well done.
Yeah.
Very nice. Do you have any last questions?
I don't right now.
Well, we could close by asking, do you have anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to say, you'd like to add? Any observations about Circular?
A lot of people are not aware that Circular is an integrated church. Not just people of color and white people, but people of all kinds of ethnic and cultural backgrounds. A very, very diverse group. This is why I say to some people, come and see for yourself. People just don't realize that and don't know how comfortable it can be, you know. But I think perhaps it has something to do with the person too. Excuse me, like I said, a lot of people are afraid to take risks. They're even afraid to try, but you've got to try. I think fear of rejection with a lot of people, perhaps. Well, maybe they won't want me. Because like Bert says about some of these other churches, I know about some of them too. I haven't made any attempts to invade any, you know. I'm very comfortable where I am. I don't have the need to look for a new church. But I think that is one of the things few people know about Circular. And I'm almost certain that most people don't know that there is a black church in the city that came out of Circular many years ago. And I'm going to try not to get into that because I'm not aware of the history that much, but I am aware of that. So this is not a brand new thing. And for those of us who are now here, we did not make history, is what someone said to me one day. Oh, you guys make history. You know, no, we don't make history. This church has been here since the 1600s. You know, we didn't make history. So I think that is something that people need to be aware of, that there's something here for everybody.
Thank you, Nicole and Dale, for the interviews that you've done and for the interest that you've taken in the recent history of this church.
Thank you.
Thank you. And John.
And
thank
John.
you.
You too, John. Thank you, John.
John's been there